Hi there and welcome to the Rangers News YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Willis. I'm joined by James Black and Jordan Carlisle. How are we doing, lads?
How you doing?
Good.
Today we're just going to, after what was potentially a massive weekend in the title race after a very long 2 weeks in the international break. It's always the same amount of time, but for some reason that one felt much longer. We returned to Scottish kind of Premiership action. Celtic played on the Saturday, dropped points against Hibs. Rangers played on the Sunday and absolutely thumped Aberdeen. Picked up where we left off after an 8-0 win over Hamilton. And yeah, I was just wanting to get you two boys' thoughts on where we are right now in the title race. We've seen like a kind of big fallout across the city. Rangers seem to be going quite well, but do we need to temper expectations, or are we right to be enjoying this little patch, or are we getting too carried away?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. It's a weird one because we've been really good this season. Like there's no question that we've been relentless at times. We've been absolutely ruthless in some games. When you look at the last two, 8-0 Hamilton, 4-0 Aberdeen, those are two big wins. But I've seen that compared to this time last season, we're only 3 points further ahead of where we were. So it's not necessarily that we've got that much better. Like they've regressed a lot more. But I think just we need to be able to carry this through because this, as I say, this is roughly where we were 12 months ago, and they've seen their last season wound up. So yeah.
I'd sort of be the same point of view. It is interesting at the minute because it has been a case of Rangers wiping the floor with a lot of the teams have faced so far this season, and you've played everyone once. You're coming around playing teams for a second time, and it's been very comfortable in a lot of the games. And it's just a case of the players, I think, as Gerrard sort of pointed out, not getting ahead of themselves because, as James says, it's not that far ahead of where things were last season, and obviously a collapse of the same nature of what happened last season would still land Rangers in trouble. But I mean the depth of the squad and the quality and the threats from different positions and the fact that you can change basically your entire sort of midfield and attack game to game to suit everything just means that Gerrard must be sitting absolutely delighted with things. And I think there was a bit of a meltdown after that Livingston draw. The Hibs one was probably avoidable, but they're doing well this season. But other than that, it's been essentially flawless, certainly domestically. And the fact that I think you see all the stats out there. Rangers scored X amount of goals. They've scored more goals than Bayern Munich, kept double amount of clean sheets as anyone else, and all that. And a lot of people, certainly in England, will dismiss that by saying, "Oh, it's in the Premiership. Like it doesn't matter. You're against some very weak teams." Now Hamilton turning up, barely being able to get a squad out. That maybe plays into that. But going into the Europa League and producing very similar performances against some very good teams just shows what a brilliant position they're in at the minute. So yeah, things are couldn't be much better in terms of a Rangers perspective at the minute. But yeah, it's a long way to go at this point.
No, I think you're both right. I think it is a very long way to go, but there's been times over the course of maybe the last 2 seasons in particular where we've got a little bit too carried away. I think that one of the big differences is when we're winning games, it's just head down on the next one. I think that the sounds coming out of Rangers are much more longer picture. I think that or bigger picture rather. I think that what Gerrard says about being humble at the weekend, and then what Roof had said as well. I don't know the exact quotes, but all of that is pointing towards what is looking like a very focused and determined Rangers team that have had their kind of fingers burnt by the last 2 seasons and have a kind of end game now. And it's very, very exciting. All the commentary is crazy at the minute because obviously everything that's happening at Rangers is obviously running parallel to what, for the most part, looks like quite a spoiled reaction from over at Celtic because they've won the last 11 trophies on the bounce. The question that I want to ask you now is much of that down to what we're doing rather than what they're doing?
It's both. Again, I feel like I'm sitting on the fence constantly just now, but it is because we've been very consistent up to this point. I mean, it's 13 clean sheets in 15 league games. I think it was something like 18 goals in the last 4 or 5 league games and unconceded. So when you're taking that on one side of it, but then you're seeing Celtic drop points so consistently and just generally play quite poorly, one's making the other worse. If they were having the results and we were going through the same kind of form, they'd still be in the car park, but I don't think it would be quite so vociferous, and I don't think it would be quite as. Chris, I've seen Gordon Strachan's name mentioned. Gordon Strachan, like, come on, really? Like, they're plumbing depths already.
I think it's sort of something that, for a lot of Rangers fans, when Lennon got that job, there was an element of hope to it because, excuse me, he's not some sort of Guardiola type, football philosopher who's going to come in and bring this whole new style, and he's really got this sort of persona around him and his own style of play that he's going to bring in and really shape the club, sort of like Brendan Rodgers did. That he obviously built a really good culture and all there, and brought in some really good players with him. With Lennon, look, the guy's done well and they've won every trophy since he's come in, but there was always that sort of element that maybe this guy is the coach, where there could be that chink in the armour where Rangers can get back in, and that's certainly something that Celtic fans, I think, thought at the start had sort of stopped talking about for a while, and now they're absolutely all over it at the first sign of trouble. I think it's important that they haven't been losing games, so this could be a whole lot. The gap could be a lot bigger than it is. It's a 91st minute equaliser at the weekend, come back from behind at Aberdeen games earlier in the season. There's last minute winners and that sort of stuff. So there's still people saying that he's lost the dressing room. I think if he's completely lost the dressing room, then it's 2-0 at the weekend and they lose. They're obviously still fighting, but there's unbelievable, like Shane Duffy, how he's just forgotten how to play football since he's come up from the Premier League. There's some serious things that are obviously afoot there, and the problem is, though, how long will it last, and how long can Rangers capitalise on it? I think Celtic have multiple home games in a row, which no matter who the manager is, when you look at their squad, they should be winning them all. So it's a case of, with no 4 or 5 games, then break, reset and come back, which Rangers have been doing really well. It's a case of, can you run at this for a long time and not take the foot off? But yeah, the turmoil over there, the reaction is bad after the drop points, and then to see Rangers win 4-0 on the Sunday against Aberdeen, and then it just heightens it that bit more. So the longer that can continue, the better chance Rangers have, but it can turn around very quickly.
One of the big things as well, I think, that works in Rangers' favour is that, I mean, we're looking, it's going to be February, March before they actually claw these games in hand back. So, I mean, regardless of what they actually do, there's always, I mean, barring a Rangers collapse at any point, but assuming that we keep level pegging week in, week out from now and the next couple of months, I mean, by the time we get to the Old Firm game at the start of January alone, they'll have played a game fewer than Rangers have. So if they're going to be 3 behind it, there's going to be an advantage regardless of what they do for quite a while. And that's going to mentally kind of chip away at them and their supporters, because we've seen already that they're rather impatient, to put it politely. It's Christ, as I say, there was a thing on Twitter today that I'm sure we've all seen already. Was it Celts for Change? Their protest at the Celtic Way wanting Lennon and Peter Lawwell out.
It is bonkers. The reaction. I mean, if Rangers, there's still a very long way to go. And see, when you watch Rangers this season, I think that there's a lot of excitement in the Rangers support, and I think that it's been earned and it's deserved. I think that when you consider where we came from and how hard and the rubbish that we've had to watch, to now have a team like that, it's very, very exciting. And I think it's important that you can compare and contrast the two situations, because they're running at a parallel and they're both interlinked. And I think that Rangers fans are right to be excited, but I have to kind of keep our feet in the ground. Celtic fans, on the other hand, I think it's a bit extreme, but the more extreme it gets, the more it benefits us. Do you know? So I'm all for it. Just running down there and sitting in the sidelines and not trying to comment too much and not getting too drawn in and just kind of looking at it from afar and enjoying this Rangers team. It's quite hard to not get carried away, but we haven't won anything yet, and we're only at this stage of the season. And like Jordan says, it can turn around very quickly. So if we lose a game or if something happens, then maybe it can snowball. But who is going to stop us? Like at the moment, right, on current form, what team in Scotland or in any of the upcoming fixtures? I think that we've got to play Hibs at home in Boxing Day. I think that we have to play Dundee United in this run as well. But is there anything that on current form or any of the upcoming fixtures or anything that you think could potentially make us stumble or stop us in our tracks?
No, I think Rangers' biggest risk in these games is going to be themselves. It's making sure they go into every game with the right mentality. And I mean, we've seen it at times last season where we kind of turned up for games and they're quite happy just to play in front of teams. I mean, we just assumed that we were going to get the chances and that teams were going to kind of break apart in front of us. But this year they've been a lot more dogged and just, the Rangers are forcing teams to make mistakes and they're forcing opportunities. So it's as long as they keep doing the right things, there's no really any of them at all domestically that you can sit and look at going, well, I mean, that's a really risky one.
As you said there, Cammy, in terms of like the difference in terms of where the squad was at and where it is now, I think that's something that's obviously really stands out for a lot of people. But I think even for me looking at it, when we're looking at the transfers in terms of things over the last couple of years, we're covering everyone as they come in, and it just seemed to me like there wasn't a great deal at times. It seemed to me that there wasn't a great deal of a plan to it. It seemed to be, every single window there's 6, 7, 8 players you need to bring in. That time when there was the loads of wingers that came in, none of them played. It seemed a bit all over the place at some points, but it has really come together now into a point where I think the one thing that they've identified, yes, maybe playing in front of teams not having enough penetration before, and that's led to tactical tweaks with the coaches. But I think the key thing now is you have players in each position who know that if they have a really poor game one week, then they're not going to get back in the team. Also, every time they play, there's a chance to score 2 or 3 goals because the midfielders and the wide players are going to create so many chances, and that sort of fire and competition between the squad and the fact that people are able to be fresh. It's Morelos knows that if he's fit and not suspended, he's playing, because otherwise it's Kyle Lafferty who had basically told everyone that he'd given up because he wasn't getting regular playing time. He wasn't trying enough in training. Now we've got Roof, we've got Itten, who sort of looks the part and has done a good job, or scored a couple of nice goals, and has only been restricted to cameos basically the whole time. The club paid a couple of £1 million for him, so I think that's really impressive. The one thing that I feel that Rangers haven't really been tested with that much, and they looked slightly vulnerable against, was when Hibs played 2 up front against them at Easter Road, and it was 1 striker per centre back. I think that was a different approach that no other team can really get away with in the league other than Hibs, the way they're playing at the minute. So, but yeah, I think at Ibrox, every game is Rangers' to lose, and then away from home teams like Dundee United, maybe difficult places to go in the past, but they're a team who have struggled for goals and maybe not lived up to the hype after the championship last season. So yeah, it's just the longevity and the length of the run, and I think when you get towards the end of December, I think it's St Mirren away, and then the Old Firm, and then Aberdeen away. I think that's a very tight week or so. They could have a big impact, but for now, I think it's just keep doing the same things and don't take the foot off the gas, basically.
See, obviously going into this season, it was a very, very kind of high pressure affair, and everybody was ramping up the pressure in pre-season, and then, well, obviously we knew that it was going to be played behind closed doors. I think anybody with kind of any sense knew that we weren't going to get fans in before the turn of the year. Now, obviously, it's been something that's been poured over so many times, but how much of a difference do you think that not having supporters in the ground has led to the moulding and the kind of formation and the form that this Rangers team is now in?
I think it's been massive. I think it's really been crucial. I think when you're looking at, particularly the way that certain players are playing, that they're a lot more relaxed and a lot more comfortable. And it's not even necessarily that the fans are a hindrance, but I mean, we've all seen it a million times before where you get somebody makes a silly mistake and the moans and the grumbles kind of start, or you get to a game 50 minutes in, it's still 0-0, and the place starts getting a bit restless. So yeah, it's, you know, your players aren't having to necessarily deal with that just now, and I think they look so much better for it.
It's probably a bit of a disaster for Tav that he's scored 25 goals and 80 assists in the season where there's no fans, because you know the guy in row 3, seat Z, who's been giving him absolute pelters for the last 3 seasons, you know, didn't have the chances to have that sort of thrown in his face during the game. But it's I think it has been very beneficial, but I don't think it will be a major hindrance now. Would they come back? You know, when it comes maybe at the turn of the year and Rangers are in a good position, that's the sort of thing that can then push the team on. But at the start of the season, when everyone's saying, look, Gerrard needs to win silverware here, are these players up for it? Do they have the bottle? All of these questions, when the fans aren't there asking that in their face, as they're entitled to during games when, you know, there's defeats to Hamilton at Ibrox, things that shouldn't be happening at the football club. When that sort of pressure is removed at the start, I think it's been really big for a lot of the players, particularly the creative ones, and maybe even the centre backs too. People like Connor Goldson, who has made mistakes in terms of possession at the back. He's one, you know, he's happy to clip balls to the top, hit his diagonals, and he's been a great source of creativity and starting attacks this season. So yeah, I think it's been a major benefit so far. But now that Rangers are in the place that they are, I'm not sure it matters a huge amount either way.
I personally think that it's been massive. Like I thought that if we'd went in at the start of the season, there would have been so much pressure. I think that you had to go to Pittodrie that first game. I think that there would have been a few instances of players trying to get used to the club, get used to the surroundings, get used to the style of play, and then to have that extra pressure from how poor we were at the end of last season, and then the obvious pressure of this season. I think it would have. There's no way to possibly tell. Do you know what I mean? But I think that it would have had. It not having to play in front of fans and having that big, massive, amazing pitch and having everything taken care of behind the scenes and having this really kind of young but very, very talented coaching staff. Having all that stuff in place and then just being able to just go out and play with a level of professionalism at the club that we haven't seen ever. I mean, even post, not or pre-2012, and the years leading up to it, a level of professionalism we haven't seen in the club in a long time. Making sure everything's there for the players to go out and perform, and I think just having that little kind of bit of breathing space at the beginning of the season has been a massive influence, and maybe by kind of proxy with the Celtic situation, because of how hyped their fans had made this season, and when they returned to action, maybe they were kind of just running out of gas anyway. A lot of their players and a lot of their team, and maybe the enthusiasm of their supporters was kind of carrying it for them, and maybe not having their fans at the start of the season has been an impact. But there's no way to tell, and I do agree with you that when fans do return, and hopefully they do this season in decent numbers, because after everything, I mean, there is a lot of confidence, obviously, but after everything, if we get to the tail end of this season, it would be really, really special if we are to achieve something this season, if fans could be involved in it after everything that they've been through. But I don't think it would have as much an impact now. And I think that the mood certainly would be different. And I think that's just been a bit of a game changer for Rangers. I think that it's been big. But yeah, another question I wanted to ask is as well is like, obviously we haven't won anything yet, and we're going well in the league and we're going well in Europe. But how does this Rangers team rate and your team of Rangers teams, just by the way that we play and the potential for us to go on?
In terms of where they rate against other ones that they're at the bottom just now because they've not won anything. They need to win something to be anywhere close to any other one.
Say they, well, I suppose it's hypothetical, but
if they win something, then they'll very much be up there because they're playing some really consistently good stuff. They look like a team that's really enjoying themselves just now. And for me, they're probably playing, arguably since the back end of McLeish when the team of Ferguson De Boer scoring for fun almost. It's probably the best I think we've played on a regular basis since then. So if we can start winning stuff, they'll be right up there. But until they do, they're right at the bottom of the queue.
Yeah, I think in terms of individuals and stuff in the team, you can tell when the international breaks come around now that there's people flying away to every corner of the world to play who've been at Rangers on club duty and have impressed enough to sort of get to that level. As James says, when you have De Boers and that sort of stuff, guys coming from Barcelona, clubs really not, those are sort of gone eras where you're getting guys from clubs that size. But yeah, in terms of, agree that it then it's probably a question to be asked or better answered towards the end of seasons because we don't really know what's happening yet. But certainly the quality, there's some real quality throughout the team at the minute, and I think that's starting to get recognition, not only in Scotland but across the UK and in Europe. I think people are looking at Rangers, and so I think we'll talk about Benfica separately, but the fact that their manager is looking to rest his entire first team before he comes to Ibrox, shows that he thinks it's a really big challenge for a European giant and Benfica with a lot of history. So yeah, I think they're a team that have sort of really built up a bit of reputation over the last couple of years, and they're playing some really top stuff.
I think this has probably been the first incarnation of a modern Rangers team. I think that the football changed dramatically when we were down in the bottom tiers, just not like the finance and the infrastructure and the nature and the kind of tiered system of football clubs as a general, and the way that the game is played and the way that clubs are run, it all changed. Do you know what I mean? Like the directors of football became commonplace. There was greater emphasis on like academies and like buying players for low value and selling them on for high value. And I think Rangers didn't really get the opportunity to be that kind of a club, like on that level with, say, like a Celtic or like an Ajax or something. I think that now it's a different kind of Rangers on the pitch and off it. And I think that everybody involved in it deserves credit. I mean, but the bottom line is, can we win the title? Can we win the trophy? And that's what this video is about. It's about, is it, can we get carried away? Is it right to get carried away? And I think that let's just see what happens towards the end of the season. But if this team can go on and achieve domestically and in Europe, I think that we've got the makings of something really special here. But it all comes down to whether or not we can lift silverware. But yeah, thank you for joining us for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and we'll see you during the week for a preview of the Benfica match.